So I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the features of the Zlob Modular VC F3DB, which is a fixed filter bank which has built-in VCAs, sliders for the amount of output at each band, and it has a lot of different distortion and feedback features. So it's a pretty complicated module, and I wanted to start out by demonstrating self-oscillation. So all we're doing now is we're listening to the main output that's going into the data so we can see it, and we're going to be able to hear it. Now I've set it up with all the channels are switches, mute switches are unmuted, they're on, and all the levels are set to their max. And I have the gain set all the way up and the feedback all the way down, which if properly trimmed, there will be no feedback. I also want to mention that I have set the envelope followers so that they indicate, so that the lights on the LEDs will indicate not the level coming out, but the level going in to the VCAs. So it'll always indicate the energy in the inputs in the filter bands. So with this setup, I'm just going to start by turning up the feedback pot until it starts feeding back. So in that demonstration, I was just showing, I was varying the sliders, and I was changing the amount of gain and the amount of feedback. So basically, the more gain and the more feedback there is, the more it's going to oscillate. So that's the basic self-oscillation. Now for this, all of the clipping switches, which are hard to see here, but there's little switches for clipping, they're all off. And especially this gain feedback switch is off, and that's the center pot, gain feedback. And this gain feedback is a rather strange feature, and now I'm going to demonstrate, and I'll show you why. I'm going to demonstrate self-oscillation with the gain feedback. So I'm going to put this switch up here. We can see immediately it starts doing something. It's oscillating at a very low rate. We can vary the energy in the frequency bands. The lowest frequency is actually it's a low pass filter. So it's not a band pass. So it's going to let through anything below 88 hertz pretty strongly, and it likes to resonate and feedback in that band. But now I'll show you something kind of unexpected. We were coming out of the main output, but now if I look at input 1, which is an input, lo and behold, there's an output from input 1. And we'll see it's a kind of a pulse wave. So it's oscillating there at about 2 hertz. Now if we listen to the output, it looks like this. It's a little quieter, but it's getting a little popping, or basically it's almost like a rung filter, which it is. Turn off the gain feedback, it stops. And of course, there's no output from here. And as soon as I put the gain feedback on, now we haven't used the feedback pot here. So with this gain feedback on, I can also use the inject feedback from the output back to the input. Demonstrate that if we modulate any of these VCAs, we can get a kind of animated effect. So here's the VCA input, let's say, for this slider. If I use this output from Just Friends. So just to sum up, there's basically, you can self-oscillate with or without gain feedback. When you put the gain feedback on, you're going to get an output coming out of input 1. So I suggest experimenting with the outputs input 1 and the main output, and the odd and even outputs as well, which are each have a mix of 3 of the bands, which I didn't demonstrate, but it's simple enough for you to try. So that's self-oscillation, and that's the end of this, this first demonstration. And next up, I'm going to demonstrate processing an oscillator.